All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Sunday, November 10th. We got an 11-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like in the game as well. But guys, all of my final plays, so that I'm actually rolling with myself, will be posted on the Guy Boston site. We'll put a link to that in the pinned comments, so make sure to keep an eye on that. Completely free, just the place that we are putting our final plays for now. So make sure to keep an eye on that. In terms of how we did yesterday, a nice little mini sweep there, 2-0. I feel like when we have these small NBA slates, well, today's not one of them, but when we have small NBA slates, we've been very precise in terms of where we want to attack. And yeah, yesterday worked out okay. Clint Capella, full unit over 10.5 points. That cashes. Raptors team total, I went back and forth on this one, and it was 111.5, and I bought it up to 112.5 just for whatever, right? Put a half unit on it, and that ended up cashing as well. We probably should have just rolled with a standard 111, but hey, you know what? We can't cry over profit, right? So shout out to that, but honestly, a bigger shout out. And let's pump in some crowd noise here to Henry for Victor Wembanyama, over 2.5 3-pointers made for plus 130. What did Wemby have? Did he finish with 6? I think the last I saw, 6 threes. He was 6 of 9 from deep against the Jazz, so let's drop a soundboard cha-ching on that as well. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day with your favorite play in the comments. Each and every day, I jump on board with one person's pick, give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. You get a shout out on the Guy Boston Sports site, as well as on my Twitter/X at FGuyBoston. It'll be popping up here throughout the show. So you get shout outs multiple ways, no matter if you win or lose. If you do win, we continue to ride with your plays. So we're going to be looking for Henry's play today. Henry, make sure to get a pick in so we can ride with that. If not, we'll ride with someone else that drops that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. But what do you say we jump into today's slate? Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let's get to rocking here. We're looking at Detroit taking on Houston, starting us off in this one. Now, Detroit has been a decent against the spread team. Like, it's not like last year. Remember how bad they were last year? Well, this year they're 1-4-6 straight up, which is already an improvement in terms of where they were at this point last year. And then in terms of against the spread, they're 5-5, a 500 ball club. Now, Houston, on the other hand, 5-4 this year, 5-4 against the spread as well. It's a little weird why this line is so low. I know even the graphics is 4.5. It's actually 3.5 in most places. So I feel like it could be a trap, but I do think this Houston team is the better team. They're definitely the better offensive efficiency team, but they've been playing so slow, so the points per game actually lean towards Detroit. But when you actually look at, points per possession and whatnot, this is a better offense than Houston. They're definitely the better defense. I think that the only thing that I could see Detroit being better at is maybe the rebounding spot here in this one, but Jalen Duren is doubtful. That's obviously huge. Now, Steven Adams is ruled out for Houston, so to me, this is a Houston spot, but that line doesn't just smell a little fishy, smell a little trappy, so I do lean Houston, but for whatever reason, that ekes me out a little bit. In terms of the total, I don't mind to look at this under. Both teams play fairly slow, like I'd already mentioned. Houston, 24th in terms of pace rate this year. Detroit, 22nd. Both teams are really bad at scoring offensively in transition, so even if this game does start to move, like, neither team is all that special when it comes to being able to actually score. Transition offenses here in terms of field goal percentage for Houston, 48.5%. From the field, not great. Detroit's not much better at 50.6. So I do like the under in this spot, but we'll see if we end up rolling with that. Keep an eye on the site for our final plays. In terms of player props here, I tried to dig. I don't think they're going to end up actually rolling with anything in this spot overall. Next up, we have Milwaukee taking on Boston. A lot of injuries to note in this one. Jaylen Brown now a game-time decision, so he may be coming back. Same with Giannis. He is a game-time decision as well. Obviously, he's been playing, but both of those guys are going to be pretty damn important to see if they are playing or not. Also, from a bench perspective, you have Gary Trent Jr. game-time decision, and then Luke Cornett game-time decision as well. So I guess just keep an eye on some of the injuries in this game. I would say Jaylen being the biggest one. Giannis has been on the injury report, and he has been playing, but Jaylen hasn't been playing. So I think that that's worth noting there. To me, this is a number that is just not big enough. Like I've said multiple times, the Celtics team, will falter at different times, but even against Brooklyn, they didn't cover that big number. I told you they probably wouldn't cover that big number. They came back in OT and won that game, right? This Celtics team can win close games. They have a way better offense than Milwaukee does here. So if this number is going to sit right at that low number of 4, I can't help but, maybe take the bait. But this also, much like the Houston line, maybe smells and seems a little trappy because the Celtics team is definitely better than the Bucks. They beat them by, 9 or 11? was it like around 10 points when they played them at the end of October. That was in Boston, though, so I get it. But still, this line going to 4 after Milwaukee, beats Utah, then immediately loses to New York. Like, this Milwaukee team is still in disarray to me. So I will lean Celtics. Am I all over it? Not necessarily. And I always know, being a Celtics fan, that when I'm looking at the Celtics, I probably got rose-colored lenses. Is that saying? So I always try to be a little hesitant. But to me, 4 points, 4.5 points does not seem like it's all that much. In terms of what we have from a total perspective here, I would expect the Celtics to start this game hot and then potentially, maybe the Bucks kind of make it closer or reel it in. So I think maybe a Celtics team total first half or even just the first half over could be a good move in this one. Last time these two teams did end up playing, the first half had a decent amount of points. The Celtics did have a good third quarter, but in the fourth quarter and whatnot, things slowed down pace a little bit. But the Celtics have been so efficient that they've been able to score buckets no matter what. But to me, this is a spot in which, we come into Milwaukee. Milwaukee should be fired up. This team already beat you. They spanked you. Let's see what we got. And it's a competitive first half. So maybe we look at first half over or first half team total over. And then from a player prop perspective, one thing that I will note, let's jump into the outlier screen here. Al Horford, over points plus assists. He's done it in 3 straight games against Milwaukee. Even looking at where the minutes are, his minutes can be dodgy. We know he's been getting plenty of minutes so far this year, right? Averaging just about 27 minutes. And in fact, in his last 5 games here, he's hit this 3 straight, so I guess 3 of his last 5, but he's playing 26 minutes. So I don't mind this spot. The one thing I'll say, Milwaukee against centers, they haven't exactly been all that generous for points or assists. But again, the proof could be in the pudding here with what Al Horford's done in terms of his last 3 games against Milwaukee. So we'll lean in that direction, but overall, just keep an eye on the final plays. I think what I would end up rolling with mostly in this game might be just considering the Celtics, minus the points, because I do think that they're that much better. Now, could this be a close game? Yeah, it's Milwaukee. You have Giannis, you have Dame. I get it, but the Celtics are a different animal right now. Hey guys, real quick, I know this is a basketball video, but Underdog has a 0.5 total yards line for new customers today over on their site. So make sure to go ahead and check out the link down below. We'll also put the link on the Guy Boston Sports site along with the final plays for your convenience. But go check out Underdog's 0.5 total yards for CJ Stroud. If you don't know what it is a great place. You go more or less based on set player projections. The more you win, the more you can get paid out. Really, really cool. You're also going to get up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus when signing up. So go check out Underdog, guys. Again, that link will be down below as well as on the Guy Boston Sports site right with the final plays. Go get this no-brainer 0.5 total yard square. He can run for it, he can pass for it, and then boom, this lights up green. So go ahead and check that out. Again, that's Underdog, 0.5 total yards for CJ Stroud, link down below. All right, moving on, we got Indiana taking on the Knicks. I don't think either one of these teams are doing what they thought they would do to start the year. Indiana 4-5, but they are 5-4 against the spread, and at home they're 2-1. So there's a couple, good silver lining looks. New York 4-4 this year, 4-4 against the spread, 2-3 on the road. They are coming off of a win. It was at home, but against Milwaukee, 116-94. Indiana coming off of a loss, but it was like a bad loss to Charlotte in Charlotte. So I don't mean to smirk when I say it, but they lost, 105 to 80, 83 or 85 or something like that. Not all that great. In this spot, I do think that the Knicks are going to get a little bit better and better, but Cam Payne and Deuce McBride are both listed as doubtful in this spot, which are 2 decent bench pieces. Obviously, McBride, too, being the bigger name. So I think that that's worth noting, but to me, I can't really look past the Knicks here because I just think that they're what I would say is so far a better offense than Indiana. And again, you look at sort of the points per game, like that's not always the best way. Hopefully you guys can take this advice, the best way of looking at who can score and who can score, because that's all based on pace. The Knicks are playing as the slowest team so far this season, so no kidding they're not going to score as many points per game for Indiana, but in terms of offensive efficiency so far this year, the Knicks are the number 2 team compared to the 14th ranked Pacers. So I do think that there are some spots here in which New York could have some successful buckets, whether it's the perimeter, whether it's in the paint. I do think that they have a little bit of an advantage. So though they may not play at the same pace, if the Knicks are controlling the pace of this game, I think that they're going to get some easy scores. So -3.5 on the Knicks side of things. Yes, they're on the road. Yes, I get it, but I think that that's going to be where I look to. I'll also take a peek at the under 222. Is that crazy? Maybe, because the Pacers are playing, but like I mentioned, the Knicks are playing super, super slow. If they can kind of take this one down and make make the Pacers play slow. We've seen some Indiana offensive woes at different times this year, right? When these two teams last played, it was all Knicks the whole way. 123-98 win for the Knicks, and exactly my point. The Knicks had some easy buckets. The total went under this line, right? And the Pacers just really didn't have the success because they weren't running and gunning. So I'm thinking it goes somewhat according to that, but even me mentioning, I guess, the fact that these two teams played and whatnot does give a little bit of a revenge spot for the Pacers. So if you like the Pacers today, don't let me talk you off it. I just like the Knicks. I think that they'll have an easier time scoring, but not an easier time to blow this total out of the water. So give me the Knicks and the under. Couple player props here that I'm liking. In fact, I'll show you instead of telling you. Pascal Siakam over 22.5 points. Same thing with Benedict Mathurin over 16.5 points. If he gets the minutes, I really do like this spot. If we come down here, you can see where Indiana struggles, right? The Knicks struggle. Knicks struggle with points in the paint, both in the restricted area as well as in the paint, meaning outside of the restricted area. 50.4% field goal percentage right there, as well as the restricted area, almost at 71. So we obviously like that spot. You can see points in the paint allowed Indiana 24th in the league. Both of those guys lead the team in both the restricted area field goal attempts as well as outside of the restricted area in the paint field goal attempts. So Mathurin and Siakam could be guys to look at for points. The problem is I feel like we should pick one. I don't know if both of them are going to eat in the paint type of thing, but if I had to, I'd probably say if you can guarantee me the minutes for Mathurin, I like his spot. Siakam has been looking decent, but obviously that's a pretty high line. Like Siakam could score 21, which would be under this line, and still have a good night and do exactly what we said. He just didn't get to 23. So I guess Mathurin may be the look. He's done it a little bit more consistently to that line in his recent performances. All right, Orlando taking on Washington, kind of a gross one here. As we know, we keep harping on it, but it's still important to note for the Magic here. Paolo Banchero out, Wendell Carter Jr. out right now, Kuzma, Brogdon, Sadiq Bey, now Carrington listed as a game-time decision. All those other guys out. Game-time decision for Carrington on the Washington side of things. Am I crazy? We'll sound the psycho alert alarm. Am I crazy to be saying that this is a huge number for an Orlando team that, yes, they just smoked the Pelicans, but prior to that, we had seen how much these injuries have impacted their games. Now, they played some decent teams. They went Cleveland, Dallas, OKC, all three back-to-back. Then they lost a somewhat close one to the Pacers. So I get it that Washington is a step below these teams, and what they did to New Orleans, who I'd put closer to the bottom based on how New Orleans is now, especially with Zion being out for a while. I get what they did. They smoked a bad team, but right now you can get 10.5 in some places. I'm going to sound the psycho alert alarm like I did and look at Washington plus the points. Do I have the cojones to pull the trigger myself? Probably not, because no matter, I guess what I'm just telling you is I would, I guess be cautious in terms of laying that point with Orlando, because I get that Washington's so bad, but this Orlando team will have its struggles without Banchero. That truly was their facilitator. He was playing a lot of, point forward type of run for them, right? So yes, they went through a gauntlet, and yes, they lost a bunch of games, and yes, they did go and smoke the Pelicans, but I don't know how consistent this Orlando team is going to be, meaning I'm probably never going to lay 10.5 points, 9.5 points with them whatsoever. So that's kind of where I'm coming out. So I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that Washington is the go-to or the mega today or anything no. I just can't really get behind Orlando. But like I said, I've done crazier things. I say all this, and then all of a sudden I post it as a final play, and people are like, I guess you liked it a little bit more. And it's like, if that's the case, that means I looked in and found more and more and ended up liking it more and more. But right now, this is probably just a lean. In terms of the total sitting at 220, this is an Orlando team that plays kind of middle of the pack, but Washington does fly. And I know I mentioned how Orlando's offense has struggled and whatnot, but I don't expect them to not be able to score against this Washington team, right? This Washington team may be one of the worst defenses, if not the worst defense in the league. So yeah, give me the over in this spot. I think that Orlando could be a decent look now. In fact, one way to, if you're liking Orlando today and you're like, but Washington stinks, Ev, I get that you're leaning them plus the points, but they stink. Maybe an Orlando team total would be the beat around the bush way of taking Orlando today instead of looking at them to lay that huge number. You know what I mean? So maybe if you are on Orlando side, that's a little bit of, light bulb goes off. Maybe you can look into that in terms of what you might get, because I could see Orlando still scoring on Washington Swiss cheese defense. I just don't know about winning the game by, double digits in a sense. And then no real player props. There's so many injuries here. Didn't dig into the player props on this one all that much, honestly, and I don't think that I will throughout the day. Minnesota is taking on Miami. Minnesota, maybe on a little bit of a run here, but the run was against Charlotte, Chicago, and then Portland. I understand that Miami is a different type of team. They're a little bit, I guess, better defensively, and they play slower than those teams. Miami off of 3 straight losses, Sacramento, Phoenix, and Denver, maybe not the easiest of schedules, but I will still think that, say that Minnesota, though this is a big number at 8, I still look at them and say that they're the team in this spot. Miami can't stop anyone from scoring on the perimeter, and Minnesota's actually scoring more points from 3 than almost every single team this entire year, and you can guess who's scoring more than them, right? But then even from the other perspective, like Miami shouldn't have any success on the perimeter, as Minnesota is the number 1 3-point against allowed team so far in terms of like the fewest allowed. So I think that their defense matches up really, really well to dominate the 3-point game here. It's like, okay, well, if they dominate the 3-point game, then Miami probably gets them inside, right? No, Miami, restricted area field goal attempts per game, ranking 4th fewest in the league. They're 24th, so that's the 6th or 7th fewest in terms of points in the paint per game. So even though Minnesota, I guess, is struggling against, I don't think struggling at the rim this year, I don't think Miami's going to be the team to just constantly and frequently try and get there. So this is a Minnesota spot for me. That totals at 218. I think it's tough to lean over when I do think that like Miami is going to struggle to score in this one. So I might just trust Minnesota. Like, I do think Minnesota can drop buckets from downtown this game. Like, I don't think Miami's going to be able to stop them on the perimeter. So maybe I'd take a peek at a Minnesota team total here, which as of right now, we can pull that up quickly just to see what it is. Minnesota in terms of points, we'd be looking at over 110.5 for minus 150. That's juiced. 112.5 for minus 118. Maybe that's something that we could even consider. So yeah, I think that Minnesota could have some offensive success today. And it's funny, I even said in my last video that people aren't giving the Miami defense enough credit, and I like the Nuggets team total under. I'm almost like willing to throw that out based on how I saw the Nuggets kind of just dismantle them and whatnot. Like, yeah, this Miami team might have some grit, but they're a long ways away from the Miami teams of old in terms of being where they are defensively. So Minnesota team total is probably a look here as well, and that might even be a preference of mine, given the fact that that is a big number at 8, right? Player prop-wise, I don't mind the idea of Anthony Edwards just hucking from 3. Now, the problem being his line is so high. Right now, his 3-point line. Let's see if we can find it really quickly. Anthony Edwards' 3-point line. It was 3. Yeah, it's 4.5. I was gonna say it is plus money, and he's hit it in all but 2 games this year. But 4.5 is crazy. So what I might do here is some sort of a same game parlay of Anthony Edwards for like 2+ threes and Minnesota minus 2.5. Like, massage the numbers a little bit, but add them both together. I could see myself doing that. Or Minnesota team total over with Anthony Edwards with 2+ threes or 3+ threes. Something that makes sense a little bit more to me, but both obviously would need to happen. But that might be what we end up doing here. OKC taking on Golden State. What an interesting one here, because this is obviously a really good Golden State team. We've learned that. They just lost to the Cavs, but I've been preaching, and a lot of people do realize at this point how good the Cavs are when healthy, right? OKC's 8-1. They lost to Denver, then they come back and just smack Houston, which was expected. This is a really, really tough one because OKC is just so good defensively, both points per game as well as number 1 in defensive efficiency this year. But you know who's number 2 in defensive efficiency? Golden State, and I feel like they're flying under the radar a little bit. So I think that this could be a close game, but the fact that this line is right there at 7 and not any closer tells me that whoever's, the smarter ones out there coming up with this stuff do trust OKC. So I'm going to lean OKC minus that big number. I almost tried to get an angle to Golden State, and a lot of numbers do make sense. Like, Golden State probably has an upper hand here because, obviously OKC can get to the hoop with Shea and whatnot, but Golden State's been phenomenal in terms of, stopping opponents from scoring at the rim or in the paint. But overall, I just see that number, and I'm trying to line read here versus just all the data that we have at our disposal. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump to the conclusion that is such a strong line because OKC is the spot in the team here. So give me OKC minus that number. That totals at 227. I look like a fool when I said Golden State and the Cavs would go under because both teams are so good defensively, and the final score is like 1,000,000 to 1,000,002. So I'm going to lean under again, but I understand that that's a tough one for people because of all the talent on both sides here, right? In terms of player props, though, I wouldn't mind a look at Shea to hit over 1.5 threes. Just given the fact that I do think that he could struggle trying to get to the hoop and whatnot. 2 of his last 3 games, he did hit 2 threes against the Warriors here. And this year, 5 of 9 games. Now, if we look at his recent history, this is to him to the three-point line, hasn't been all that great, but his attempts are going way, 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 way down, right? But I do believe against a team that should give him trouble at the rim, he might take a few more. So, yeah, I don't love his recent volume, but beginning of the year, he was chucking them, and they were still really good at that point. So, yeah, maybe a look at Shea's over in threes, and that's kind of giving the Warriors the credit they deserve with their defense down below. But, yeah, OKC minus the points. By the way, I totally see if someone likes Golden State. Golden State's really good, and it's not just because of Steph. Like, they actually have a very good team, but that's 7 points. Like, the fact that that's such a strong number, I just feel like I have to trust it, honestly. What a bleh game this is. After OKC and Golden State, which is sure to be a great game, now we have Philly taking on Charlotte. Okay. All right, let's dive into this one. We got Philly as 3.5-point favorites at home. Total right now is sitting at right around 221, depending on where you look. I think I've seen a couple 222s out there. And in fact, as I refresh, this thing has dropped severely down. So maybe we record these early in the morning. Maybe something has happened in, I'm assuming, yeah, it looks like Tyrese Maxey ruled out, but he was already ruled out. Okay, so we don't know exactly why that total just dropped, but FY 221, it's more like 215.5, 216.5 now, which is a crazy jump overall. But to me in this spot, it's probably a Philadelphia look. Now, no Embiid, no Maxey, sure, but you still have Paul George there, and I don't think the Charlotte team's all that good. And one reason that I like Philadelphia is that Charlotte's won 2 games in a row. I just don't know if they go out there and win 3 games in a row. Is that the best way to look at a game and predict a side or whatever? No, but I already told you this is kind of a messy game, and the fact that that line dropped so severely in the last hour, maybe, hour and a half, worries me a little bit. But Philadelphia, and I guess the under, if we can still snag a 2, I don't think we can, but the under, because I don't think that there's going to be much of, great scoring in this one. The problem is neither defense is all that great. Charlotte actually, I would say, has the better defense, but Philadelphia minus the points as well as the under, that's probably where I'd go here. Now, you got to be able to understand my vibe on this one, right? Like, I don't think I bet this one myself. I don't love it all that much. So consider what I'm saying with a grain of salt. These are the types of games where we get the comments, then why did you even go into it? And I say, because I like talking about sports, and the format of the show is that we go through each and every game, and sometimes we've gotten some positive comments of someone being like, after you talk about a game you don't necessarily like, there's either a nugget of information in there, or it helps other people sort of retain the information of, okay, well, if this isn't a game that, say, I like or someone else likes that you're watching, maybe there's not as much in there that you might see, you know what I mean? So I think it still helps me just being transparent, but hey, transparency, is always the worst, isn't it? But yeah, give me Philadelphia as well as the under. It's probably all I got in this one. Denver taking on Dallas. What a sandwich there. We got OKC and Golden State, and then a crappy game in the middle, and then we got Denver-Dallas, which should be a good game as well. In this one, I'm just looking at this saying I think it's a little bit too many points, but there's a big red flag in this one. PJ Washington listed as doubtful, still a game time decision here. Maxi Kleber, same situation, same thing with Derek Lively. Those guys may play, I get it. But now we have Luka Doncic questionable in this spot. Aaron Gordon's still out on the Nuggets side of things, so Luka is going to be obviously a good thing to monitor here. But I'll start with the player prop, actually, because I will say I like Dallas, but no bother in like kind of digging in and saying exactly why when Luka might not even play. But I like Dallas, but I think the main look here for me may be Klay Thompson over in his threes, so he's done it in 3 straight against Denver. 3, 4, 5, that's good, but obviously none of those being with his new team. On this season, he's been okay to this line. The attempts should be there. He needs to hit 3, right? And this is a Denver team that has not been all that tremendous against the three-pointers, definitely to the small forward position. If Luka doesn't play, I wonder if Klay will get maybe some shooting guard minutes, especially if PJ plays and Derek Lively. I wonder what they do with that rotation, right? But again, 3-point percentage, 3-point defense, I don't think is Denver's strong suit. Like, they've been pretty good against teams in the paint, especially scoring. Like this year, like they dominated the paint, but not so much the perimeter. I think Klay could kind of sit out there and hit a couple today, and we need more than a couple. Hit a few today, right? 3 of them. So Klay Thompson, I guess I like that even more if Luka doesn't play, right? Still like it with Luka facilitating it, but if Luka doesn't play, I'm sure Klay's going to have a few more field goal attempts. So that's my main look in this spot. But like I mentioned, I like Dallas, and in terms of the total, I'd probably lean slightly towards the over because I think both these teams should be able to score on each other. But that's all depending on Luka. So if we roll with Dallas or the over, we're going to need to know if Luka's playing first. So Klay Thompson's the only thing I have right now that I kind of like regardless of the situation with Luka. All right, guys, before we jump into this game and the last 3 games, go ahead and comment 25. You made it 25 minutes into the video, and I do have a comment question of the day. I know you guys like when I do this, but I'm just too dumb. I can't always think of a topic or something, right? I know we do the 25s, and I love seeing the guppies be like, what's 25? But I also like asking a question with this one when I can think about it. And one is one I was just thinking about because I was at the Celtics game a couple days ago, and I got the chicken tenders and the fries. The fries were okay, but what is the best either ballpark, stadium, or arena, like when you're at a professional game, or I guess college, anything, when you're at a game, what is the best food to have? Because chicken tenders are up there, but there's some foods that like to me, I don't know if I'd like a sub at a game. Too messy, or a grinder, or whatever people call them everywhere else around the country, but a sub sandwich, like I don't know if I'd like that at a game, but chicken tenders are perfect. You get your sauce, you get your tenders, easy to eat, you can dip them, like that might be number one for me. So what at a stadium or an arena is the go-to number one food to get? Is it pizza? Because TD Garden sells you those big-ass, huge pizzas, and those are kind of tough to manage. Like, I love pizza myself. You can tell by this big old belly, but, like, that's not the most convenient thing to be eating when you're rubbing shoulders way up in the balcony with a bunch of people. So what is the number one go-to thing, whether it's taste or practicality? Let me know. I think that's a decent question. And shout out to, I think, Reggie something was your username. That was your idea in the last video of a question. I think that's a good question. So let me know, guys, in the comments when you comment 25. All right, Phoenix taking on Sacramento. You might look at this one and be like, Phoenix minus the points, right? Well, Nurkic game time decision and Kevin Durant out. So that's obviously massive. Looks like Bradley Beal's good to go. So, okay, that's great. They still have that. And obviously this team, based on since that big 3 has been there, has had to deal with playing without 1 or 2 of them anyways. So I get that. I don't know if if Kevin Durant was playing, I would love Phoenix. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, well, that spread is moving around 1.5. I've seen Phoenix +1 and then quickly move back to this line 1.5. So it's kind of all over the place. I don't know if I'm going to sit there and say Kevin Durant's going to matter that much, but what I will say is Phoenix is due for a dropping of a game, and this seems like one where they would do it. Sacramento is not a bad team. They've been kind of up and down, so I will lean Sacramento, but this is another one. We have a few of those today where I'm like, if you like Phoenix, I understand it, but to me, Kevin Durant makes this line go down to 1.5. But even if this line was higher, it actually probably hurts me because I think I was looking for more points from Sacramento because Phoenix has been on such a tear that at some point they drop, the ball somewhere, right? And this is a Sacramento team that should dominate the paint, should be better defensively on the perimeter. They're definitely just a better defense overall. They're comparable from an offensive perspective in terms of efficiency. Phoenix is a better assist-to-turnover ratio rate, better rebound rate. So there are things that Phoenix does way better, but this seems like a spot for Sacramento. If KD was playing, I'd like it. So him being out, I have to like it obviously as much. But I just feel like I was getting a better line earlier before he was ruled out. In terms of the total, I'm going to give both these two teams, these two. Obviously, I could say these two or both of these teams. I don't need to say both these two teams. I'm catching myself with the grammar. I don't think either one of them is all that bad defensively. I already mentioned it from an efficiency or just like, raw numbers, points per game. So I'm going to lean under 229 in this spot. I might even look at, but 1 or 2 of the teams being under team total, depending on what we go through later on in the video here, later on in the day as we go through it, because I think that one of these teams probably struggles to score today. I'm hoping, based on my lean of the spread, that it's not Sacramento and that it's Phoenix. So that might be a look to look at one of these two teams in terms of a team total with kind of another dive into this game later on today. So keep an eye on the final plays here. I like the under. I'm telling you, I like the under, but curious to see if we can find one edge on either side that we didn't have time to this morning to look at a team total under. And then player prop wise, I don't really love much in this one. Like, these are two spots in which both teams defend very similarly, and I don't think that there's the biggest of I guess you could say the biggest of like advantages when it comes to zone shooting. The one thing I will say, and this is just to give you guys something, I don't mind Bradley Beal today, absence of Kevin Durant, and he is one of the main, out of the starters, he's going to shoot more corner threes. That's like the one weakness of Sacramento so far this year, corner threes. So that's something to consider. But again, his line's going to be a little bit higher because of no Kevin Durant and whatnot. He's 20.5 points for him today. He hasn't hit that in 6 straight games. So I like that spot, but obviously Durant's throwing a wrench into it. Portland taking on Memphis, as we know, or as you should know, Memphis has the craziest injury report. All right, we'll go through it right now. So Castleton, game time decision. Marcus Smart, now game time decision. But then you go Bane out, Gigi Jackson out, Ja Morant out, Spencer out, Vince Williams out. So ton of guys injured for them. In fact, their starting lineup, I kind of like the big man in this spot, but Portland's bigs haven't been terrible this year, right? But Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark, I do think that that's a decent little big man duo for the future. One thing I will say in this spot, though, is that those guys, could be decent looks today because Memphis does like to score in the paint. Portland hasn't been all that, tremendous at I should say this. They haven't been, the further you get away from the hoop, the worse Portland is. So they haven't been tremendous at stopping anything outside of the paint and all that. They've been pretty damn rock solid in terms of not allowing teams to score in the paint. Number 2 in terms of points in the paint allowed. Going up against Memphis, who's the number 1 scoring team in the paint, I think Portland can hold their own today, especially when you look at the injuries, like no Ja Morant and whatnot. So I do lean Portland, but this would be a Memphis spot, even if Bane or Ja Morant was playing. You know what I mean? Like, it's that thin and narrow in my brain, but because neither one of those guys are playing, what is Santi Aldama, Scottie Pippen, like these guys are not the guys they need. You can look at these starting lineups and be like, holy crap, Portland may have more talent in that starting lineup today, and definitely depth-wise because of the injuries, whether it's Simons or Ayton or Grant. It's like, yeah, unfortunately for Memphis, Portland may be more talented than them right now, and you're getting points at home. So I will lean towards Portland because of the injuries. When it comes to what we might like from a prop perspective, I would look at potentially, like I just mentioned, some of the guys like Jaren Jackson or something like that of potential unders, because I don't think that they're going to have all that much success down low. And with all these injuries, you have guys like Jaren Jackson where his points line is just super, super inflated at 23.5. Like, yeah, he's a really good player, but he's only hit that over in 3 of 8 games this year, coming off of a 39-point game against Washington. It's like, yeah, obviously the dude's due for aggression. The one concern with that is who the hell else is going to score for this team, right? Like, he might just get a million shot attempts, shoot terribly from the field. Portland makes it difficult, but yet he still somehow goes out there and drops 24, right? So that's where I'd go. In terms of the total, I'm also going to lean towards the under. I feel like we've done a lot of unders today, but I think Portland's defense is going to be a little bit better than we think in terms of how they match up. Again, they stink as you get further away, but Memphis loves to shoot closer to the hoop, and that's Portland's forte. So I don't think either team's going to have the easiest of times scoring today. All right, Lakers taking on Toronto. Obviously, got to look at the injury report. Barnes, Brown, Olynyk, Temple, Walter out for Toronto. In terms of the Lakers, Anthony Davis game time decision. Christian Wood still out. Jackson Hayes game time decision. So similar injuries there. Now, in terms of where I'd go in this one, it's a little weird because remember how adamant I was when these two teams last played, which was, a week ago, maybe a week and a half, and Toronto was getting 9 points, and I was like, they're not going to win this game, but that's way too much. Toronto covered that 9 points fairly easily. They lost the game by 5 points. But now the fact that we're looking at the Lakers here at home, and I guess you could say the Lakers coming off a decent win against Philly. I don't know if I'd say that. Like, at home, I think that they're going to be a team in which at home they're good this year, and on the road they're not that great. In fact, JJ Redick, LeBron, Anthony, like that team fits the bill of being good at home, but still first-year head coach, kind of struggling on the road. LeBron, AD, maybe not caring as much when they're on the road because of being in the league so long. So to me, 10.5 points actually looks a lot smaller for the Lakers at home. I'm gonna lay that big number. Crazy, I get it. In terms of total at 234, well, you have two teams that like to run. Number 6 in terms of pace in Toronto, number 11 in terms of pace for the Lakers. Both teams love to score at the hoop. I don't see anyone stopping each other at the hoop. So yeah, I look at the over, but in terms of what I might like instead is just a Lakers team total over, or taking a peek at Anthony Davis in terms of his points in the paint, or just his points overall because of Toronto's struggles in the paint. I think Anthony Davis could have a big night tonight. So yeah, this is a weird one. I know 10.5 points is a lot, but I'm really not convinced Toronto keeps this one close. But we'll see. I've been wrong before. But guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to comment 25 like we talked about, as well as your go-to arena food or whatnot. I think mine's chicken tenders, which maybe that's like I don't know, maybe that's going to be a lot of people. Maybe that's like a little kid's one. I don't know. But make sure to comment that. Hit that like button and subscribe button. We'll catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.